The first light of dawn crept over the rolling hills of the western estate, painting the sky in pale oranges and pinks. A grand colonial mansion stood at the heart of the property, its white pillars bathed in soft, golden glow. Beyond, manicured hedges framed an elite military dog training yard where discipline and discipline alone once ruled. Yet that morning, a quiet tension thrummed in the air, heavier than the rising sun. What none of the guests would suspect was that the day would not showcase strength, it would expose a cruel secret, and a child's gentle heart would upend it all. Inside the mansion, 7-year-old Sophia sat before a tall window, her wheelchair parked neatly by the sill. Hain City, ended child. Paralysed since a tragic accident, she listened intently to the soft clack of paws on gravel. A black and tan German shepherd named Brutus was being led into the yard for his final preparations. He moved with measured precision, each step deliberate, yet his eyes betrayed a sorrow that even the best trainers struggled to hide. Sophia leaned forward, breath catching. "He looks sad today," she whispered. She knew the dog's limp, seen in the afternoon shade, wasn't natural. Something dark had been done to him, and she recognised that pain too. Her mother Laura entered quietly with a tray of warm oatmeal, the bowl steamed between them, drawing misty circles in the air. Laura brushed a stray lock of hair from Sophia's face, speaking softly. Military dogs are taught to obey, not to feel. But Brutus remembers his past. She paused, her eyes clouding with worry. "And so do you. And so do you." Outside the window, Brutus flicked an ear, as if he heard words meant only for the two of them. But the private moment shattered when Richard Weston, Sophia's stepfather, strode in, a phone in hand and face as cold as the steel leash he held. "And no delays," he said, snapping the phone closed. "No, we leave for the exhibition in 20 minutes. She'll be ready." His gaze barely flickered towards Sophia before he turned on his heel and vanished down the corridor. Laura exhaled so sharply the oatmeal trembled in its butt. Richard's cause of optics and a clean execution had haunted her dreams. And just last night, she'd heard a new trainer's name, Clay, a man as ruthless as the machines he used to break animals. Under his watch, Brutus would become nothing more than a weapon. Good. On the training field, Clay tightened Brutus's harness. The dog flinched at the tug of leather, but he remained steadfast. From behind a glass window, Richard observed with arms crossed. "You're sure he'll obey?" he asked in a whisper of steel. "Say." "It took 2 weeks to break his filters," Clay replied, eyes hard as flint. "He's ready, and we frame it as an accident." Richard allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. "It's good. Make sure she's close enough during the demo. We can't leave loose ends." Word of the plan reached Laura that afternoon when Pedro, the stable hand, appeared at her door. His face was pale, voice trembling. "They're going to let Brutus loose near Sophia," he said, dread pooling in his chest. "They've trained him to attack wheelchairs." Laura's heart stopped. Instantly, protective instincts roared to life. "Go to my study," she whispered, her voice shaking but firm. "Tell no one. I'll keep her safe." As Pedro fled, a thunderhead gathered over the estate, as though the sky itself sensed the storm of betrayal brewing below. To understand Brutus's sorrow, one must look back to his days in Afghanistan. Once a proud military working dog, he'd sniffed out hidden explosives, saved countless lives, and stood shoulder to shoulder with his handler, Corporal Mason Lay. Mason was more than a partner. He was family. Together, they patrolled dusty roads and whispered trust in the dead of night. Then, ambushed in a hail of gunfire, Mason fell. Brutus rushed to shield him, only to be wounded by shrapnel that mangled his hind leg. When Brutus was carried home, there were no salutes, no parades, just quiet crates and indifferent commands. His service discarded, his spirit nearly extinguished, until Richard Weston bought him for pennies and handed him over to Clay's cruelty. In Clay's hands, Brutus's proud posture wilted. Shock collars hissed against his throat. Hollow-eyed, he floated through training yards like a ghost, his instincts dulled by fear and pain. Yet weeks before the demonstration, when Sophia first rolled by his kennel, something inside him stirred. The dog had braced for abuse, but instead heard a soft, clear voice. "You look tired." "Me too." Through the wire, Sophia offered half a peanut butter sandwich with trembling fingers. His hunger warred with his distrust, and when Brutus bit into the bread, he tasted something he hadn't felt in months, hope. From that day on at dusk, Sophia would come, always whispering kindness and leaving scraps of bread. Brutus would wait, nose pressed to the bars, until, she returned. On the grey morning of the exhibition, black SUVs lined the drive. Investors in tailored suits, military brass polished with medals, and a handful of influential friends arrived beneath banners proclaiming a tactical obedience evolution. The training obstacles stood in rigid rows, gleaming under a sky too still for comfort. Sophia watched from her window, heart both fierce and fearful. Laura adjusted her scarf beside her, her knuckles white. Stay here, she urged. Be safe. Be safe. Sir. But Sophia's gaze lingered on Brutus's pen, and something deeper called her forward. He'll know I'm close, she whispered. I can help him. Laura's warning was lost as Sophia wheeled herself toward the front door. Outside, Pedro pretended to sweep gravel. His eyes fixed on the dog run. His eyes fixed on the dog run. Laura grabbed the phone, dialing Sheriff Martinez, but signal failed her. The house walls swallowed every plea. On the field, Richard paced, barking orders. A discipline, ferocity, no sentiment. Clay stood by the reinforced cage, remote in hand. Signal will trigger the collar, he confirmed. Het, he confirmed. Richard's gaze flicked toward the wheelchair ramp. Good. When I give the sign, unlock the gate. Make sure she's in position. For a moment, Clay hesitated. This was reckless even by his standards. It'll look like an accident, he muttered. Richard's grin was shark-like. Perfect. We contain the threat, then dispose of the liability. Minutes before showtime, Sophia edged toward the ramp, every rotation of her wheels a drumbeat in her chest. Laura's desperate shouts crackled over her phone, weak, distorted, drowned by distance. And that's it. On the stage, Richard adjusted his microphone, voice rich with practiced charm. Ladies and gentlemen, behold the power of discipline. Brutus, tethered by a long leash, stood beside Clay, collar blinking an ominous red. The crowd hushed, waiting, and Richard nodded. And the device buzzed. Brutus's muscles tensed. In a heartbeat, he sprang free. Dirt flew as he rocketed across the field, teeth bared, tail a rigid spear of determination. Gasps rippled outward. Some investors recoiled. A few brave souls stepped back. But Sophia, she did not flinch. She sat motionless, hands calmly resting in her lap. The thunder above seemed to rumble in time with Brutus's pounding paws. He closed the final yards and skidded to a halt inches from her wheelchair. Silence shattered. The dog's chest heaved, eyes wide and wet, body trembling. Then, with no command, he crumpled at her feet, letting out the softest whine. Why? The world seemed to ask. The hush broke into murmurs of disbelief. Richard's face drained of colour. Clay dropped the remote as if it burned him. Laura raced across the grass, reaching Sophia's side. Are you hurt? She cried. Sophia shook her head, voice barely a whisper. He protected me. He chose not to. In that instant, the carefully crafted spectacle collapsed. The audience surged forward, phones raised. Pedro emerged, breathless, holding a small recorder. Yeah, I heard everything, he said, voice ringing across the field. He pressed play. Richard's own words, cold, precise, filled the air, and make sure she's close. We frame it as an accident. Outrage ignited. Shouts of animal cruelty. Child endangerment will go beneath the grey sky. Yeah. Clay's face twisted with guilt. He's not my daughter, he snarled at Richard. Sure that you knew the risk. The sheriff finally arrived, stepping between them. And no one will suffer harm unless provoked, he declared. Turning to Richard, he added, You're under arrest. As handcuffs clicked shut, the estate's future shifted. Investors withdrew. And news of the plot spread like wildfire. 3 weeks later, the once glittering western grounds lay free of shock collars and cages. And, under court order, Laura held full guardianship over Sophia's well-being and the property tied to it. The training yards were dismantled, the scent of fear replaced by fresh earth and possibility. Out of the ruins, a new dream took shape. A therapy centre for wounded dogs and children with disabilities, where trust might grow again. On a bright afternoon, laughter rippled through the open fields. Brutus, his limp a gentle reminder of battles fought, walked alongside Sophia's wheelchair, tail wagging in steady arcs. Under the great oak tree, she read stories to a group of children, teeth bared only in giggles. His eyes, once hollow, now shone with purpose. Ooh and ma, shone with purpose. Then, as dusk painted the sky amber, an intruder slipped by the barn door. In a heartbeat, Brutus leaped forward, barking with fierce loyalty that sprang not from fear, but from love. The man fled, leaving tracks in the soft grass, and Brutus returned, triumphant. Later that night, Sophia lay in bed, tracing Brutus's name engraved on his new tag. A service dog guardian family. Laura sat at the foot of the bed, smiling softly. And maybe we should change the sign out front, she mused. Sophia turned, curious. To what? Welcome to Haven Creek, where heroes come to heal, Laura replied, voice steady with hope. Tears glimmered in Sophia's eyes. "He saved me," she whispered to Brutus, and Brutus, faithful as ever, pressed his head to her hand, as if to say, "No, you saved me." Thank you for joining us on this unforgettable journey of courage, healing, and the unbreakable bond between a little girl and a once broken dog who became her protector. If this story touched your heart, tap subscribe and never miss a tale where animals become heroes and love finds its way back. See you next time.